spirit, trust in people. Effective people, teams, and organizations require not only skills and structures, but also spirit, trust, and vision. Because these qualities are necessary for open communication, common cause, and synergy, skills and structures support and complement effective teaming, but cannot produce it without spirit, trust, and vision. When leaders fail to inspire to common cause, to set clear performance objectives, goals, and accountability, when individual pride in work is glossed over by forced equivalence, then people seem to play to the lowest common denominator, superstars seem to lose enthusiasm, and team efficacy decreases. But teams need not play to the lowest common denominator of individual performance. If leadership accentuates both individual efficacy skills and team skills in a complementary way, then the organization will actualize self-motivation, self-accountability, empowerment, adaptability, creativity, specialization, and cross-functionality. When we experience spirit, trust, and vision in a team, our creativity and energy increase substantially. Indeed, in these circumstances, our work can give us energy rather than take it away. Why is it so little time spent on spirit, trust, and vision in the leadership literature? First, these are intangible and therefore easy to ignore in a world filled with concrete problems, quantitative parameters, and growth expectations. Second, they seem to be soft disciplines that do not enjoy as much prestige as the hard quantitative and analytical disciplines. Third, their involvement with the inner disposition of people makes them seem more ambiguous and difficult to control than processes, technology, and product innovation. It's easier to hold a conflict resolution workshop than deal with the vague notions of spirit and trust, and easier to study personality inventories which do not involve human choices and values than assess character inventories which do involve human choices and values. Nevertheless, leaders need to give serious consideration to these intangibles, for they show up poignantly on the bottom line as an increase in opportunity costs. Opportunity costs reflect the revenue lost from missed opportunities. For example, if employees lack spirit, trust, and vision, they may engage in shoddy customer relations, may not pursue new valuable opportunities, may not contribute to the elimination of waste and product defects, or may lack the desire to improve processes. Opportunity costs are probably more responsible for the stagnation and demise of organizations than any other single factor, yet they are the most invisible of costs because they are not reflected in the income statement as a tangible expense. It is, for example, much easier to see an increase in one's utility expenses than to see the lost revenue resulting from unexploitable opportunities in developing market share. Also, opportunity costs generally take a year or two to manifest themselves. For example, a lack of spirit, trust, and vision could take 1 or 2 years to become evident as missed opportunities for new customers, new processes, and new product lines. But when this slow process manifests itself, it will reap a terrible harvest, for it will take a long time and much inspiration to reinvigorate the unhealthy organization. Sometimes it is too late, and an organization simply becomes spoils for the victor. If, however, leaders foster a community of spirit, trust, and vision, the 5 organizational deliberators, fear, compulsive ego, passive aggression, resentment/anger, and suspicion will decrease. Performance objectives, empowerment, and self-accountability need no longer be threatening to anyone who has the skills and intentions to contribute to the team's common cause. Good team leaders can frequently identify and assist those who have problems with skills and intentions. After doing this, leaders can help team members with connecting, communicating, and moving toward a common cause by listening to and acting on feedback and showing appreciation for self-motivated, self-accountable, openly communicative, creative, and synergistic behaviors. As a result, opportunity costs are significantly reduced, giving the organization a future of quality, adaptability, and growth. How can we infuse these qualities of spirit, trust, and vision in our organizations? I suggest 2 steps. 1, developing the mind and vision of the inspired leader, chapters 2 through 5, and 2, developing the heart of the inspired leader through personal commitments, chapters 6 through 11. People commitments, chapter 12, ethical commitments, chapter 13, and leadership commitments, chapters 14 through 18. These steps will not only significantly improve quality and reduce opportunity costs, they will also invite stakeholders to a better quality of life. My intent is to help you develop the mind and heart of inspired leadership and to apply these mental, emotional, and spiritual habits to the benefit of your family, team, and organization. The heart refers to a set of interior attitudes that place a contributory identity over a comparative one. These attributes are essential for the development of spirit, vision, and trust, not only in a leader, but in a family member, a community participant, and a citizen. A good heart leads to happiness, purpose, drive, depth, ideal, and hence the capacity to inspire, so the contents of this book are applicable to every dimension of your life. By the end of the book, I hope you will begin using the habits and attitudes essential to inspired leadership. These attitudes will reduce opportunity costs, increase willingness to change and grow, break the parameters of quality improvement, and create a culture that stakeholders enjoy. These attitudes will also positively affect your personal life and your stakeholders by helping to integrate work life, both home and community life. By integrating heart and mind, leaders will not only produce better organizations, but also a better world. Our changing world. The environment of the contemporary organization has experienced a radical change over the last 20 years. This change has benefited both organizations and the world population. Organizations have become more adaptable, more efficient, and are achieving better quality. And as the population has increased, the per capita wealth and welfare has also increased dramatically. As the world becomes more densely populated, its citizens as a whole are much better off. Many books have been written about this phenomenon, and most experts attribute growth and broad distribution of wealth to improvements in 1. Education, 2. Technology, 3. Communication and information systems, and 4. Workplace environment. Paul Pilzer goes so far as to suggest that resources will not become scarce so long as these human factors continue to grow. For resourceful people find abundant substitutes for what was formerly thought to be scarce. For example, hydroponic farming, which is water-based, may one day take the place of soil-based farming because it does not require large tracts of arable land, is far more efficient, and can be used in multiple levels. Solar power and other more plentiful energy sources like hydrogen may one day take the place of all fossil fuels for similar reasons. This upward shift in the global economy has in large part been produced by innovative people and adaptable organizations that have brought breakthroughs in information, technology, and education to the marketplace. The continuance of the increase in world per capita wealth depends on people and organizations adapting to this increased complexity and change. From the outset, the organization was designed to respond quickly to shifts in supply, demand, and technology. If organizations fail to adapt, the increase in world wealth will discontinue. If organizations do adapt, world wealth will continue to increase. I see no intrinsic reason why organizations cannot continue to adapt to this increased rate of change and complexity. Any organization that does not adapt to it will fade away. The key to adaptation and change is to shift from hard, mechanistic, inflexible structures to malleable and adaptable structures based on the creativity and interconnectedness of people. Surprisingly, the vast literature on organizational change concentrates on strategic planning, process building, and re-engineering, but pays little attention to the most important factor in change, people. People alone ask questions, see problems, form goals and ideas, transcend their present state, surmount obstacles, shift thinking, create environments, form unities, and pursue common causes. People alone have the most essential principle of adaptation, spirit that engenders resilience, hope, community, and creativity. The art of organizational change in the last 30 years has concentrated more on product and process than people. This is not to say that the role of people in organizations has not changed. Government mandates and the need for increased critical skills have compelled organizations to treat people with greater dignity and respect. This practice is extraordinarily beneficial for business because it enhances creativity, co-participation, teamwork, and adaptability to change. Moreover, it fits our increased awareness of the intrinsic dignity of people and work. Despite these obvious benefits of fostering a people-friendly culture, some experts in the art of leadership tend to de-emphasize it. They argue that product and process development are hard disciplines, but people development is a soft discipline. They suggest that when a business gets in trouble, leaders should naturally look to product and process improvement and then take a quick glance at people. This prioritization tends to de-emphasize one of the most important characteristics of leadership for creatively changing organizations, the capacity to build a community of spirit, vision, and trust. Leadership courses tend to stress analytical and quantitative abilities for problem solving and entrepreneurial abilities for growth. Obviously, these skills are important. However, they cannot take the place of the ability to foster spirit, vision, and trust. For these characteristics inspire people to embrace change together, to see change as exciting, challenging, and beneficial. Anyone who has led an organization for more than a week will know that people dread change, people fear it, resent it, and consequently resist it unless they are inspired by vision and trust opening upon a common cause. When they share a common cause, change engenders exhilaration, resilience, and creativity. If we know this to be true, then why do we continue to classify spirit, vision, and trust, indeed the people part of leadership, as soft and secondary? 8 steps to people orientation. We can no longer afford to restrict our vision to product and process analysis. Failure to adapt to people-oriented leadership will be a failure to adapt to increased complexity and rate of change. We might begin our analysis of people-oriented leadership by building on 8 developments of the recent past. 1. Education. The remarkable increase in per capita education resulting from the proliferation of schools, the availability of higher education, the increase in on-site and workplace training, the development of the community college system, the advent of educational television, the increased availability of publications and the internet has led not only to the developments in production and communication technology, but also to a heightened capacity for interpersonal communication. These changes have increased resources, production, and per capita wealth. In so doing, they have benefited organizations tremendously. They also brought with them changed workers, customers, suppliers, and communities. To benefit from the information revolution, organizations had to adapt to these changed stakeholders. Education allows stakeholders to become far more flexible and open to change, increased self-understanding, higher viewpoints on various facets of production, and awareness of company vision and goals allows them to progressively release their grip on fixed beliefs and hard structures. As long as workers are communicating, sharing information, and acting for common cause, greater specialization produces tremendous efficiencies and creativity. However, if trust is replaced with suspicion, communities break down and internal competition takes over. Education also brings with it higher expectations. People have a greater sense of independence. They are more aware of their rights, legal recourses, and autonomous dignity. They have a higher sensitivity to psychological health. To adapt to these changes in the environment, managers and leaders have started to view workers as thinking implementers. Thinking implementers can listen and adapt to customer needs, to vendors' innovations and specifications, to the requirements of manufacturing, and to the refinements of administration within the changing environment. Thinking implementers provide 4 major benefits. 1. They allow for increased specialization in product design, manufacture, and customer and vendor relationships. 2. They adapt far more rapidly than just top-tiered thinkers. 3. They are far more creative in the area of specialization. And 4. They can mentor the newly initiated. These benefits provide the framework for long-term growth and viability of organizations and even world wealth and resources. Today, we can clearly see that specialization of labor and increased adaptability to change require thinking implementers who enjoy increased empowerment, self-efficacy, and self-motivation, and increased team performance and team spirit. An increase in these qualities requires replacing the 5 deliberators of team spirit, fear, compulsive ego, passive aggression, resentment/anger, and suspicion with trust, cooperation, common cause, friendship, open communication, and synergy. An increase in cooperation requires a change in people's identity focus from a comparative one to a contributive one. Indeed, the environment has irrevocably changed in response to the need to adapt and specialize. 2. Theory Y. Theory Y was one of the first major responses to the need for thinking implementers. During the 1960s, organizations began to move from Theory X, fear, force, bribe, oversight, and supervision, to Theory Y, self-motivation, inspiration, recognition of dignity, and open communication. It did not take long for managers to recognize empirically that Theory Y worked much better than Theory X. Turnover rates were lower, specialization continued to increase, and workplace satisfaction increased efficiency and synergy. Theory Y simultaneously changed organizational environment, leadership style, and workers' expectations. Hence, changing back to Theory X would mean dashed expectations, a feeling of being used, a return to non-thinking implementers, and an increase in the 5 deliberators. This in turn would lead to a decrease in openness to change, indeed defensiveness and intransigence, and a decrease in the efficacy of specialized labor. Both consequences would seriously jeopardize long-term competitiveness. 3. Total quality management. Dr. W. Edwards Deming outlined the requirements for setting up continuous feedback and evaluation through careful attentiveness to all facets of product and process. Deming's quality improvement model depended considerably on both specialization of labor and thinking implementers. Furthermore, self-motivated and specialized workers are the more conscious of quality they can be. Deming's method were so successful in Japan that the United States could not fail to incorporate them into its own complex processes. This worked for a while until natural limits were reached. No matter how much organizations increased their paperwork or adjusted their feedback loops, quality seemed to be reaching a plateau. 4. Systems theory. Systems theory came into the work environment closely behind TQM. By looking at an organization as a dynamic, complex organism with a fundamental momentum, systems theorists gave a more comprehensive and long-term picture of organizational life. It was much easier to see long-term interdependence and interrelationship. As a consequence, stakeholders, the integral interdependent constituents, customers, employees, stockholders, management, suppliers, community, etc., replaced stockholders in the parlance of business theorists. This allowed the principle of optimal benefit to be recognized in the long term, a benefit to one stakeholder, example employees, which does not undermine the common good or cause unfairness to another stakeholder group, will become a benefit to all stakeholders, example customers, suppliers, stockholders, and therefore to the organization. 5. Win-win thinking. This ushered in the notion of the win-win. If all stakeholders with diverse interests could maximize one another's benefit, then quality and long-term viability would result. If one stakeholder won at another stakeholder's expense, it would give rise to resentment, passive aggression, and even vengeance. To the extent that organizations could optimize the win-win, they could also optimize stakeholder interrelationship. This cleared channels of communication and allowed for interaction without endless rungs of bureaucracy, supervision, and bargaining. 6. Industrial psychology. Industrial psychologists could now make an even greater impact on organizations. To pursue Theory Y, continuous quality improvement, and the win-win, it became essential for people to recognize and respect different personalities. Human resource persons gave workshops on personality inventories, while industrial psychologists fine-tuned these theories within teams and organizations. In addition, other experts provided assistance in conflict resolution skills, communication skills, group dynamics, and team-building skills. 7. Empowerment theory. These contributions of industrial psychology paved the way for the first approachment of empowerment theory. The initial hopes for empowerment theory far exceeded the reality. Leaders believed that if they simply reduced oversight and supervision and gave stakeholders free rein to take responsibility for the area of specialization, productivity and efficiency would increase. Unfortunately, this did not happen because the workforce was not prepared for the change. Workers did not yet see themselves as thinking implementers. Fear of accountability, blame, risk, and change froze the workforce in its place. The rewards of self-accountability were not as great as the risks. Finally, people were not educated or prepared to become self-accountable or operate within teams. The failure of empowerment made leadership cautious about even using the word. Unfortunately, the need for thinking implementers still existed, so the empowerment approach would have to be reconfigured to avoid some of its earlier drawbacks. This reconfiguration came in various forms, such as open book management, values-based leadership, servant leadership, and new approaches to team theory. Example, the organization as cross-functional team. 8. Team theory. Team theory has emerged as one of the most well-developed encapsulation of people-oriented leadership because it helps people to become empowered and take reasonable risks. As the cliche goes, there's safety in numbers. If people can be convinced to change together, to be open to risk together, and to create together, there should be less resistance to self-motivation and risk-taking. Furthermore, a good team would optimize the specialization of labor. For when groups of specialized individuals operate with open communication, trust, friendship, and common cause, greater efficiency and performance are inevitable. 2 groups of theorists seized the initiative. 1. The team skills coaching advocates, and 2. The team team structure advocates. Team skills advocates emphasized conflict resolution, communications, and team building skills. They assisted in opening channels of communication, but had difficulty improving actual communication. Something was still missing. The team structure advocates concentrated on moving organizations from hierarchical structures to organizational or circular ones. They asserted that hierarchical structures made one group of people not only more responsible and empowered, but seemingly more dignified as people. This hierarchical structure also tended to emphasize the oversight and supervision view of management to one on top as opposed to oversee and supervise the ones below. Team champions began to replace hierarchical structure with horizontal or circular team structures. Their intent was to show that each individual could be empowered to move toward a common task through interdependence with others. The primary function of team leaders was not oversight or supervision, but rather inspiration, facilitation, and empowerment towards a common objective. The team leader is also recognized as the conduit to other teams. If reality could correspond to this structure, it would give rise to a highly adaptable and synergistic integration of specialized labor. But even the best plans of team structure advocates seem to fall on hard times. Rather than moving to maximal empowerment and adaptability, many teams moved toward mediocrity. Superstars felt they were not being properly recognized, and protection of people's feelings often outweighed high performance. In short, people on the team were playing to the lowest common denominator. Some began to be overly critical of teams, even though they recognized the necessity for meeting the demands of faster change and greater complexity. If teams are to be effective indeed, if teams are to result in a genuine feeling of partnership and co-participation, if they are to reach the epitome of high performance, rapid change, synergy, and creativity, then they will have to be infused with spirit. The rest of this book will be devoted to explaining this most important enterprise.